So to introduce myself, my name is Gabriela. I am the co-founder of Xeno Co-lab, which is a service design consultancy based in Pune in India. We design human-centered experiences for our clients who are based globally. And today here with us is Gabriela Salinas. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Yes.
And she is the CEO and the co-founder of a company called Service Design Mexico. And they are hugely into education and consulting or service design within colleges as well as companies. So I'll just let her talk about that more, and we'll just get right into it. So do you want to tell us more about Service Design Mexico and your role within the company?
Yeah, so Service Design Mexico is mainly an educational project. We started 3 years ago, and the main focus was how can we promote service design in our country, because it's still a very new thing. We know that service design has a lot of history, and it's been like an important side of design for a while, mostly in Europe. And we know that there are like a lot of ways to learn service design, but in Mexico it's still like a very new thing. So I think it's important. So I think someone has like their microphone on, so maybe they can turn it off. Thank you. And so we were thinking about how can we promote service design more. And we started doing community events at first, like 3 years ago in 2017. We started doing like the service design drinks and the global service jams. And we were focused on how can we build a community where we can discuss these kind of topics. So at the time as well, I was working at the BBVA Bank from Spain, and they have like the service design team. And they were the first service design team in a bank in Mexico. And that was very interesting. I think the reason that happened was because they had this big influence from Spain, and the bank in Europe did have the service design team. And then when we were working there, like what happened was this shift from going from the just calling yourself a design strategist or a researcher or a design thinker, and then going to service design, and also explaining companies the purpose of not just working on digital products, but also looking at the service and everything that encompasses this service. So we were stuck there. We were having a hard time finding more people to come to the team. And then we realized we needed to also get into education, because like right now the universities in Mexico are not formally teaching service design. So what happened is that we realized that community events were not enough to learn this practice and to go deeper into the knowledge. So we started teaching service design, and we have been doing that already for 3 years. And also last year we started a conference. So what happened was also that one of the main universities here in Mexico, which is Tec de Monterrey, it's kind of like the MIT of Mexico, they approached us and they were asking like how can they start introducing service design within the university, because they already have like the very traditional design roles, but nothing close to strategic design or to service design. So just talking about it and see how can we start introducing the topic, we thought that a conference was a good medium. So we started that last year. Last year we had like an in-person conference, like the normal conference. And this year with the whole pandemic thing, we changed the format to an online event. And that was also like a huge milestone for the company, because it also allowed us to reach other cities in Mexico, which are still also introducing the topic of service design, and also a lot of other countries in Latin America. And I think that's also a big part of the efforts that we need to continue making, so we can have these discussions in Spanish, because you know that most of this knowledge is in English and usually from Europe. So it's also like a milestone for us to be able to start discussing this thing in our region.
Yeah, that is super interesting because when you'd spoken earlier, that was also something that you had pointed out and it stuck with us, is the value of making the content localized,
Yes.
and then and the fact that most of the content is available in English automatically kind of excludes people for whom English might not be the first language. So I would like to understand more about this leap that you took from being a part of a service design team within a bank to having the conviction that there needs to be more awareness of service design across Mexico. So how did you come to that, or how did you bring that conviction within yourself, and what value do you think is going to bring to companies or students to be familiar with service design? What do you think would be the kind of need for the change that that is going to have?
Yeah, so actually I think the evolution happened slowly for me, but also like very difficult, because I, what happened is that I was working in agencies for a while. So I was working, before coming to the corporate side, I was working at an agency called Idea Couture, which is actually from Canada, and I was able to, I worked there for 4 years, and I was able to really understand the process and the innovation for companies, but from the outside. And then I was curious to see how will that happen when you are within a company, because when you are a consultant, like you do the research and you do the strategy and you deliver to the client, and then the client decides to do whatever they want with it. Maybe they will not do anything about it. Maybe they will implement differently than what you think should be like the best way to do that. And then I was curious to see what will happen going to the corporate side. And then, so I went to BBVA. I was there for 2 years, and I realized that it's very hard to make change happen when you are within a company, especially if their maturity regarding design and strategy is very low. So I was actually fortunate because BBVA, I think it's one of the most open-minded companies here in Mexico, and I think that has to do a lot with being also like a company from Europe. But still, how it is run in Mexico, at the time that I was there, the design team was around 10 people when I started, and I was the first service designer working there. And then the team started to grow, and when I left, they were already around 60 designers from all different kind of backgrounds. So they had like the UX designers, the UI designers, some researchers. And right now they have the biggest design team in Mexico. So they have like the UX team, the UI team, and they have, I think, already like 150 or I think more designers, and it's a huge team. And throughout that process and that evolution of the team, my mindset also changed a lot, because at first it was like we had to sell ourselves to the other areas and to explain the kind of projects that we did and how it is important to do research and how can they get involved with that. And we were working mostly with the digital products, like doing service design for digital, and we were not really reaching to other areas that we also know that could be impacted by service design, like especially, for example, being in a bank, like the experience at the branch or the experience at the contact center. It was very hard to push to that direction, but at the end it happened. So by the end of the time that I was there, I think we managed to get the point across that service design is important, and they were now looking for us to see if we can make some projects. And it was great. It was very like it brought a lot of satisfaction for us to be able to do that. And then I was like there's another company called GBM, which is a brokerage house here in Mexico, investment company, and they were looking also to start doing some more strategic design. They were already doing UX design, but they were not really doing any kind of research. And they looked for me and they asked if I will come and open the service design area there. And I said yes. So I moved there, and I was 2 more years working at finance, and it was also a very difficult like change of mindset for me, because coming from a very big bank with a lot of European influence, coming to this other company that was very tech focused and very like they were, I think, very modern in their thinking, but it's also a family company, and it was very small. And they were not used to a lot of things that when you are doing service design, you somehow happen to make people uncomfortable because you raise a lot of questions. And I think while I was going through all of that transformation, I was at the same time teaching service design in several universities and also within Service Design Mexico. And I was looking at how a lot of people were going through that same challenges in trying to sell service design within their company, to prove their value, to find, like the seat at the table. And I think I managed to do that pretty well within GBM, because I was asked to do first like service design work, and then I was focused on management in building the service design team. And by the end of the 2 years that I was there, they asked me to be the director of design. So I was managing all of the design teams and also working with other areas, and I was able to do a lot of work also with like the legal department and the people that were in the contact center. So for me, it was a great experience of really pushing change within a company, and then trying to learn from that and teach my students that they can do the same, and try to change this mindset. But there's also like a lot of way to reach that point yet. So we are not there yet, but we hope to help more people get there someday.
So in the multiple conversations that you've had with like different types of companies, like you were just talking about, what do you help you most in bringing people who are maybe not sure or convinced about service design to them getting on board and being excited about it? What do you think helps switch that conversation?
I think for me, what I used to do is that at first I was explaining like what is service design and why it is important to have service designers. And I think that's an important part of this evangelization of service design, but it's not enough, because I think like a lot of areas feel threatened when they find a service designer that comes asking questions. So I at some point changed the way that I was talking about it, and I stopped saying service design. I was just like, how can I help your service? So you are doing a service and you have some clients, and also like changing the wording, because for us it's users, but then for other areas it's a client. So I tried to use like the words that they use, and in just helping them to realize that we are there to help them. So help them succeed in their area, and how can they get the recognition that they are looking for within the company, and just erase the part of service design, because we will be doing service design is the process that we're doing, but I think service design is just one way of reaching an objective. But the important thing is that objective, like what do you want to achieve? And then you can do that with service design or business design or research or whatever you want to call it. And they don't have to feel like, oh, it's a designer, because for a lot of people in these companies, a designer is like this person that just do like the screens or make things pretty, and then for them it's like strange, like why is a designer asking about the business model or wanting to talk with the users. So at some point I did that, so I started just not talking about service design but still doing service design, and I think that helps.
Yeah, that is great. I think that is going to stay with me for sure. The idea of asking how can I help your service, I think can be such a powerful shift in the way that you're having conversations with people. The other question I had was that you'd mentioned earlier very briefly about how service design in Mexico is not quite where you think it should be. So how do you think it has evolved? Like what stage is it at today? And what are the challenges that you normally face within Mexico if you were to generalize it?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure, because I think Mexico it's like in a strange place of the map. Like we are in North America, so we are like the neighbor of the USA, and we have a lot of its influence. But we are also Latin, so a lot of things that cultural things are very different. And so like thinking about businesses, like we have corruption and we have monopolies and we have family owned business, and all of these tends to lead to bad services. And we are in a setting that makes it very hard to promote change. Like when you read all of these case studies from the books, and they are usually from Europe, and you can even see like these success cases of service design happening like in entire cities. And then for example, if you look at the population of Finland, for example, they have, I think it's like 5 million people in the entire country. And then we have 4 times that in Mexico City, just in one city. So trying to make change at that scale, it's very different. And there's no background for it. Like you can't read that on a success case. And so we don't have like enough success cases also here that we can look for, and there's no formal education. So I think what we need to do is find a way to break a lot of things that are not working for us from the business side first, like break up monopolies and break up silos within companies and bring in more competition, which is currently happening, I think, in the financial sector. And I think that is why the financial sector is the first to have like service design teams within the companies, because they realize that they are in danger and they need to think differently and they need to do things differently than what they were doing before. But maybe that kind of change is very big and it's not on the hands of designers. So we can try to push, but it's very hard if you're pushing from below. So what happens is that change also has to come from the top. So it has to go both ways. And for that to happen, I think companies need to understand that design is more strategic now. So it's not just the execution of design, it's also the way that you think and the way that the company thinks. And maybe that will also entail that the whole company designs, like all the areas are designing, not just designers. Maybe like the final point will be that designers are obsolete because all the company is thinking like a designer and doing research and doing all those things. Like we have to help them get there. So right now designers are a very important part of the company. But I think these companies need to start thinking more in systems like finding a way to connect all the things that are happening, and to also take a step back and help the companies to really understand their users and the problem that they're solving, because I think it's not happening that much. I think a lot of companies are still working in this way of looking at competition and see what they're doing and trying to do something similar. And then another important thing that I think designers have to do right now, and especially with everything that is happening with global crisis and the economic struggle that we will face soon, especially regarding like with the pandemic and a lot of social unrest that is going on. Like here in Mexico, like in the US, we have the Black Lives Matter movement, and in Mexico, we also have a lot of things going on with the police. And I think as designers, we need to hold our leaders accountable and hold the companies accountable. And maybe they won't change all these social matters that are happening right now, because they are like very big problems, like the classic wicked problems in service design. But at least ask these leaders within companies to think more about their users. And there's always this phrase that I think about, it's from Erika Hall. She said that anyone that is hostile towards research is probably benefiting from ignorance. And if you don't want to do research, if you don't want to question your assumptions and the way that you are working, I don't think change is going to happen. And a lot of leaders are probably afraid of showing that they may not know enough about the company or their users. But designers can help them, and it's not putting them on the spot, and it's not holding them accountable to run them over or something like that. Is so we can help them and help companies to be more human. And I think that way, like design in Latin America especially will be different.
I think you just like summed it up so perfectly. You brought it to a point of like to answer the very important question of like how everybody is trying to find their place in society right now, and especially like what can the role be that we play as designers. So I think like you just brought it to this point so well. So I have a lot more questions, but I think I leave the last 5 minutes for the participants to ask any questions that they might have for you.
Yes.
So let's see if any of you have questions, then this is a good point to share them in the chat. In the meantime, I'll ask one question that I had in my mind, which is when you're talking about everything that is going on in the world, and there are like such important and critical conversations happening right now on different parts of the world. And you are at a very interesting influencers at an influential point where you're speaking to the students who are going to be future designers. So what do you think are like the most important qualities that designers or designers today should have?
I think they have to find ways to leverage knowledge, because I think to be a successful service designer, it doesn't matter if you are a designer or not. And it's actually better if you find ways to connect a lot of things that you already know. So what I see happening a lot in our industry is that we have all of these types of design, and then there's also a lot of things coming from outside. So we do research because we see anthropology and we like steal some of the things that they're doing, and then we see behavioral economics and we also want to put that within our expertise. And I think that's great. I think that speaks of the curiosity that designers have and can bring things into their tool set and to apply them on projects, because not all projects are the same. And especially if you are working in these complex scenarios, like what I was describing about Mexico, I think it's very hard to do design here, and it's very hard to create change. So you have to actually leverage all the things that you know, and to bring more people that know different kinds of things. So I think that's an advantage that they have to really make. And I think also, when I was talking about scale, like you have to make really big changes, but I think also designers, like the design teams in Mexico are also very small. And I know that a lot of designers get frustrated because of that, and they think that they will not do enough change if the team is just 2 people. And then you see like all of these great countries in other parts of the world having like hundreds of designers doing things. But there's actually power in having a small team. I think you can move fast, and you can really connect with the team and think together in how to solve things. So they have to also take advantage of that, and just take advantage of their resiliency and their also ingenuity. I think that helps, and I hope that designers can learn in taking all of this knowledge and put it together.
Looks like we have some questions here.
Yes.
So the first one from Rodrigo is, could you tell us more about your experience in dealing with companies obsessed with maximizing what is commonly known as work productivity or employee productivity in hopes to increase their profitability that way, so that they understand how investing in a better design of the services would probably lead to better.
That is one of the biggest challenges that we have right now. And I hope that these changes, especially I think what happened with the pandemic, it's actually a good thing. Like, I'm not saying like the pandemic is good, but it's good for industry because it is posing a lot of new questions about the way that we're working. And it will also bring like the remote work will bring companies access to better talent. And this talent could be anywhere in the world. And I think with that, what will happen is that the relevance of the employee experience will rise because you want to keep this talent. And then just exploiting the talent for productivity matters will not be enough, because I know that designers are burnt out right now. I know that it's very hard to do this work. And I know that companies want to have like quick wins, and that is not always like the way to go. I think if you just focus on quick wins, it's not sustainable. You have to also look long term and to see, like, for example, what I experienced working at the investment banking company was that you want people to save their money and to invest their money for the long term so they can have a proper retirement. And this needs to have like a huge change in mindset, because especially our culture is not like very good at saving and investing. And that is like a very long-term plan. And just focusing on quick wins will not affect, like if you're just looking at the metrics of how money they are investing today, it will not reflect on the changes that people need to make in their lives and in their habits on the long term. So I don't think it's sustainable, and I'm not sure like how to make the companies realize that. Maybe they have to fail before they realize that. But we can try to change that by also choosing the companies where we want to work at. And now that taking advantage of the remote work, like being this talent, trying to find companies that fit your purposes. And I know it's hard right now, but it will happen. And I assure you that designers will have more value at some point.
I think that is a good segue into the next question as well. So I know we're running a little bit over time, but if you have 5 more minutes to spare,
Yeah.
discussion. So it is, how can we productize this concept better? I do feel retail stores form a very important part of selling and letting the customer product before they buy. How could we bring that feel for the product service design concept? I feel like this is a challenge that I'm sure many face and you yourself might have faced. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yes, and it is a challenge because I think there's always this question about what makes a service a good service. And usually that means like a good service is probably a service that you don't see happening, because if you see that the service is happening, it's probably because there are some fails in it. And for example, like what is going on right now also with the pandemic is the rise of the delivery services, and you just want to have like some products in your home, but to do that you need to go through a service. And maybe if the service went well, you didn't really realize the service, like you just see the products at your home, and that makes it good. Like what happens is that service tends to be intangible. That is one part of the definition of what is a service, and this intangibility will always be there. Like it can become more tangible and more productized if you put some product elements with it, but it's usually just like an exchange of value between two parts, like the client and the staff, or the user and the company. And that makes it really hard. Like it's definitely a challenge for service design. But maybe we don't have to productize. Like maybe I will ask the question back of why do we want to do that? Is that just because we want the companies to realize the value of design, and maybe products are seen as more, like maybe they have more control over products because they have like fixed costs and also like a stock, and you can really control the product, and maybe services tend to be harder to control. I'm not sure. It's just a question that I will ask back.
And the next question is if you have any online resources to understand service design.
So online resources, I will say that there are a lot of great podcasts. I like very much the podcast of the Service Design Show from Mark Futine. He talks with a lot of great service designers that you can hear their perspective on how they are applying service design. You can find maybe digital books. I think that books like this new book from Lou Down called Good Services, it's, I think, great to understand just how like the main principles of doing good services and good service design. Well, you know, like the main books are This is Service Design Doing and This is Service Design Thinking. And there's also a book from Rosenfeld Media called Service Design from Insight to Implementation. Those are great resources. I know that you can find a lot of articles on Medium and maybe some videos on YouTube, but what I find is that those tend to be like very superficial. But if it's like your first approach to service design, I think that is a great way to start. And then if you want to go deeper, maybe you need to go into some kind of education. Like I'm not saying like it has to be a master degree or something, but if you really want to go deeper and not just read like the Medium post, then maybe you should find some place to keep studying and to discuss. Maybe also like the community events or some places where you can discuss with your peers about implementation.
All right. I think this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much, Gabriela. Like I said, I always have like so many more questions and I could just keep talking. there are so many things about the challenges that you face in practicing service design in Mexico that resonates also with India. So we've spoken about this before, and it is so true, and it's so different from case studies and cases that you hear from Europe usually.
Mm-hmm.
So it deeply resonates, and there are so many nuggets that you gave us today that I think is I'm going to take it into the weekend, and I think I'm going to take like the entire weekend to soak it in. So thank you so much for sparing your time, and thanks everyone for joining in. And like I said, the video might be available on YouTube, so we'll announce it on our social media channels when it is, so you can forward that to your colleagues and friends as well. Thank you.
Thank you.